Good morning, guys. How are we all doing? Welcome to the weekend. I am Dan from Trading with Dan, and this is our Bitcoin morning update. So if you guys wouldn't mind smashing that like button, we shall go over to those Bitcoin 4-hour charts. So yes, we are still pinned under this well, old support and new resistance area, currently in the at least in the top part of this lower range that we were previously in. In an ideal world, we are going to get supported around about where we are now. We'll actually maybe put in another horizontal here, and then put in a grey box. See if we can convince price action to stay above it. But yeah, at the moment we're above this. If we do get supported here, overall it will look good. If this is a higher low relative to these lows here. Obviously we had this price action up here, but you can probably look at that as just sideways. This would obviously be a more significant pullback, and then obviously if we turn up from here, there will be a nice significant higher low. So we'll just draw a box in there. But yeah, that's what we are looking for in Bitcoin. Obviously we all know what the issue is here. Here is the issue. S&P had a particularly bad close. It did obviously break below this support area here. It did try to rally into it at the very last bit of the close, but even then was rejected back down. So this is a particularly bad looking close. It's a particularly bad looking close, basically. You don't really look at this chart over the weekend and get instilled with confidence. So yeah, people will potentially be expecting obviously high, low, lower high, and potentially lower low now coming in for stocks. There are a lot of analysts that are pretty good, and market commentators that are pretty good, that I do think know the stuff, that are certainly calling stocks lower. So I mean, the chart is not putting a convincing argument against that either. So yeah, I mean, that is it. We are probably getting dragged down. Well, this move down here today is clearly in sympathy with the stock market, but these closes don't look particularly good. So we'll have to see what happens. How the markets open on Monday. We have obviously basically it's the geopolitical risk that we've got going on. We've got also, you can see that reflected in gold, a $1,900 handle close for this gold futures, this COMEX gold futures contract at least. Yeah, looking good. Looking as good for gold as it has done in a while. But are we going to get a big acceleration? We shall see. If we actually want to have a quick peek at gold on a higher time frame, I mean, you do not look at that chart and think bearish, do you? That looks like bullish. And if this chart is to play out how you would statistically expect it to play out, this is a pretty aggressive move upwards in towards 3,000. We could expect this is in all fairness, this is a particularly bullish looking cup and handle. Bullish in the fact that this handle is actually so elevated, and yeah, aggressive move up, nice sort of curve, and then you could expect an aggressive move up. So just throwing that out there. I do know there is obviously a lot of manipulation in gold, but they can only manipulate it so much, and then once it does start to go on an aggressive move, that is the point at which they will have to give up on that manipulation for a period of time. Plus, also, don't forget, they do like to manipulate gold because it is a good indicator of like what people think of inflation expectations, basically, and they like to anchor inflation expectations. And I would say that the whole market is pretty much now just not happy, but just convinced that there is going to be a lot of inflation. There is inflation, so I don't particularly see a need for them to manipulate that one particular price signal now that the whole consensus is inflation, 7 rate hikes, rah. But yeah, the 10-year also easing off. Some market commentators, some guys that I listen to, are actually thinking this has topped and we're going to come down to about around this 0.16 area. It's potentially the case. All I will say is I do think this is overdone, because obviously I don't think the 7 rate hikes is feasible in this rate hike cycle. Full stop. Something is going to break in the plumbing of the financial system. With way too much debt. There's way too much. They're going to rate hike it. I mean, there's the best analogy. I can't remember who it was now. Was talking about how the Fed's going to basically, the Fed's going to rein in inflation with rate hikes. Basically, it is like, they're basically, what the Fed is going to do, they're going to raise rates, so they're going to cause basically a recession, and that's going to cause that's obviously going to bring down deflation. So it's like, basically, you go to a surgeon and he's like, yeah, you've got a leg infection, so we're just going to cut the leg off. It works 100% of the time, and it's just like, well, I'd rather not do that. That's a bit extreme, but that's kind of like what the Fed basically will potentially end up doing. Is basically just like a drastic cutting the leg off, causing a recession, just to bring down inflation. But yeah, there you go. Also, yeah, I mean, geopolitical wise, the Ukraine stuff, I mean, we are basically nearing the end of the Olympics, where everyone's playing Mr. Nice Guy, time of peace. The gloves are going to come off soon. China is going to start to look towards Taiwan. Russia's going to be even more emboldened. I mean, NATO may just back off on the basis that they know they're going to be out of the sweet spot, and China's also going to be causing problems as well. So yeah, there is that as well. We're going to get geopolitical instability based on just on the timing of the Olympics ending, I think. But yes, interesting times. The dollar index hovering around there or thereabouts, supported this area. You can see the high vol leading to low vol potentially will come down into the support, and in which case we'll get an expansion of volatility. Maybe it's to the upside, maybe it's to the downside. With it being at support, you would hope, being a risk asset, but it is to the downside, and also it obviously, if it's going to break either here or here, if we're down here, it's more likely to break down there. Direction, it doesn't necessarily indicate direction, though. It doesn't mean the expansion of volatility has to come to the downside because we're at this support. If anything, you could all argue the opposite, that the expansion of volatility will get supported and just propelled in the opposite direction. But either way, just low vol leads to high vol leads to low vol, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the high vol incoming. Oil hanging there and thereabouts, obviously with the Ukraine stuff. Not much else to look at or say or do. Let's just look at those stochastics. Potentially going to get some support from the 4 hour. Like I said, we want to hold this level. We can test into it over the weekend. That's fair enough. I mean, just looking at stocks, I can't, unless obviously something happens over the weekend that is good. Stock markets are probably going to get selling when they open on Monday, just because you just look at that chart over the weekend. As long as we can potentially hold here, even some wicks below, get back above this level, this will maybe look okay. 10 hour stochastic also going to turn up from a quite a low level here. 12 hours still pointing down though, so downward momentum from that. Daily still obviously got a lot of room to run down. 2 day freshly turned over here, but 3 day, 5 day, weekly all looking grand, all looking great. Let's just have a look at this on the chart. Yeah, I mean, again, this isn't the most bearish looking of formations. This is it's not, just look at it. It's not a bearish chart, is it? This is not a bearish chart at all, is it? Let's face it. This looks like it's preparing for a leg up, and if anything, these levels down here look to be like where we would start to at least turn back up, even if we were to then have another iteration of basically of the meandering down to put in a higher low to then turn back up. It still looks like we are going to potentially turn up from there. That's not to say it will happen. I'm just saying, just look at it, that's all. So yeah, there we go, guys. Remember, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Always do your own research, and I shall speak to you guys soon.